All right, ladies and gentlemen, is it possible to change our lives by just simply changing our thoughts? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is, and we're going to dive into exactly how and the philosophy behind that and how we can change our thoughts and in turn change our lives. Living the wisdom of the Tao, ladies and gentlemen, we're reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And we are 43 verses into the Tao Te Ching. And we've gone through 43 different philosophies, all somewhat tied in together from different aspects. But it really has been a journey of how we truly can begin to change our general outlook on life and begin to change our life because of that ability, and in turn increasing the quality of life, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully you've been on this journey with us, and hopefully you will continue to join us on this journey. If not, then begin to join us on this journey, because we're also reading from Wisdom of the Ages, which also comes from Dr. Wayne Dyer. And in the future, we'll get into many topics that have to do with what's talked about in both of these books. And so today's reading, like I said, is from the 43rd verse of the Tao Te Ching. And my own extrapolations for purposes of commentary and possibly teaching, or maybe even just entertainment for you, ladies and gentlemen. But what Wayne Dyer titles his essay he wrote here on this 43rd verse of the Tao Te Ching is Living Softly. And so how can living softly play into us changing our lives through changing how we think about this idea of living softly? And I'm sure it will be titled differently by the time I finish this. And so it will be interesting to see what we come to, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited. Now let's dive right into the 43rd verse of the Tao Te Ching. The softest of all things overrides the hardest of all things. That without substance enters where there is no space. Hence I know the value of non-action. Teaching without words, performing without actions. Few in the world can grasp it. That is the master's way. Rare indeed are those who obtain the bounty of this world. Wow, that's a powerful and fascinating one, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very paradoxical. It's kind of the opposite nature in order to teach the grand lesson or the great way, which is the softest of all things overrides the hardest of all things. It's fascinating. And that without substance enters where there is no space. The value of non-action, allowing. See, that's another principle that's been coming up often here and throughout the last few readings we've been doing this week and last week. This idea of not trying to force the natural way, your true essence, your true nature, not trying to shove and push and, try to control every single bit and aspect, but rather having the ability to not only flow with our natural way, but being able to surf that wave, with being able to proceed with the nature of life rather than forcing and controlling it, and being able to flow with it with ability. That's where we're trying to get, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, living softly. Wayne Dyer begins by saying the Tao Te Ching is full of parallels to nature. And in fact, the pure essence of the teachings seem to be to help us become Tao-inspired sages through oneness with the environment. The opening lines of this 43rd verse remind me of the way of water. And see, that's exactly what I was thinking, ladies and gentlemen. I'll stop here and go back to the line that says, that without substance enters where there is no space. And so that made me think of water being able to go through rocks, solid rocks, and create erosion. It's like, but so Wayne Dyer, I think, was beginning to say something similar to that. His 43rd verse, remind me, he says, of the way of water, of its softness and ability to enter everywhere, even where there's seemingly no space to do so. Water is used symbolically in many references to Taoism, such as in the title of the outstanding contemporary work by Alan Watts. And if you've never heard of Alan Watts, ladies and gentlemen, search him up and spend a few moments listening to some of his wonderful lectures from back when he spent time teaching, because it's just amazing, life-changing stuff that he has to say. But you've got to be ready and open-minded, or at least interested enough in these kind of topics to want to listen, because it's powerful, ladies and gentlemen. But what he was saying here, as I'll continue with Wayne, is the water in the watercourse way, which was the title of Alan Watts's outstanding work around the Tao, which is Tao, the watercourse way. To live softly is to live the watercourse way, ladies and gentlemen. So in this verse, Lao-tzu invites you to change the way you view hardness. And so see, this whole journey has been changing the way we view things to create a greater awareness and understanding of the reality we live in, and in turn increase the quality of life, have much more contentment, much more peace, much more joy, much more purpose and reason and self-image and personal value and all of these things, ladies and gentlemen. And if you don't want those things, then I'm confused. And tell me why in the comments. But if you're getting value, smash the like button. Now, to you, the concept is probably equated with strength. So, you know, when people call you soft, it's like, oh, you're calling me weak. You may work out because the firmer your muscles, the tougher you think you are. Do you consider diamonds more valuable than a soft mineral like volcanic ash, which crumbles in your hand? Perhaps you subscribe to the idea that doing a difficult task makes you a better person. Now imagine emulating water, this basic element that is the embodiment of nature. After all, it does comprise 75% of both the world's surface and, more interestingly, our own physical makeup. And so that's a fascinating correlation to remember when thinking about water, and not only this way, but many other ways, because water plays a great importance, ladies and gentlemen. And if it's something you've never thought about deeply, then I consider you ponder and contemplate and meditate on water and the importance of water throughout history, maybe even a different history than we thought we knew. But that's a different subject, ladies and gentlemen. 75% or more or less of both the world's surface and our physical makeup. Think about the way water courses, flowing to the lowest place, and how in order to experience it, you can't just grab a handful. You must instead relax, lightly placing your fingertips inside of it. So it's this idea that you can't just grasp it, because the more you try to grasp it, the more it goes away. And so you must like work with it, is the point here. So in order to gather water, you have to, you know, be careful and work with it and flow with it. Or when you're trying to float in water, you can't stand on it. You know, it's like you don't get a hold of it and grasp it and get a firm ground. You must allow and be free. Kind of go with the water, ladies and gentlemen. Reflect upon how the gentle water compares to the solid stone and marble it's capable of carving through. The soft water overrides hardness. Deep valleys surrounded by mountains of granite have been carved away over the centuries by the patient, quiet, moving liquid. And see, so this is all we're using, these kind of, Wayne's using these kind of visual ideas or images here to give us a metaphoric example of this concept, this new view on softness. So centuries, carved away centuries by this patient, quiet, moving liquid. Imagine being able to enter where no space appears to be available, and to move slowly, speaking seldom and allowing yourself to be harmoniously intact as you seek a lower, less noisy, and noticeable place, a place where all others desire to come to you. This is the watercourse way. There's value in the non-action of being able to flow like water, naturally and effortlessly. I can't help but think of this when I enter the ocean, Wayne says, to swim for an hour or so. I want to go with the current rather than swim against it. So my first choice involves seeing which way the water is going or coursing. As I move through the sea, he says, emulating its naturalness, I trust my instinct and swim without trying to direct my arms and legs in their strokes. So once again, this is a metaphor for flowing through life, ladies and gentlemen, and going with the current instead of fighting against it. And then when we are in this act of swimming, instead of trying to be, overthinking it and trying to be so perfect, it comes very naturally. Of course, we're talking about those of us who do know how to swim. So don't go jumping out there trying to flow with the ocean if you don't know how to swim, ladies and gentlemen. Just a disclaimer, because that's another perfect metaphor for this being applied to life. It's like, if you don't know how to swim in the first place, that would be a good place to start, metaphorically. So if you don't know how to go through life, at least afloat, begin with the very simplest teachings of philosophy and psychology, and how you can, but that's in everything that I talk about, ladies and gentlemen. So it was just a good metaphor to bring up there, I guess. All right, so go with the current rather than swim against it, emulating its naturalness, trust the instincts without trying to direct it. I think of it as doing but not interfering, Wayne says. That is, I'm allowing my body to propel itself through the water without my mind telling it how to move. As I've changed my thoughts about hard and soft, I don't have to do anything but be in the water. I've chosen to make my daily swim a soft, silent experience that requires very little action on my part. And my swimming world has changed, becoming easy, joyful, and almost effortless. I've learned, quote unquote, the value of non-action. As Lao-tzu expresses it in this verse, it's performing without action. So remember, the line was, hence, he goes, that without substance enters where there is no space. Hence, I know the value of non-action. The master's way. That is the master's way. And so, apply this way of seeing everything in your world. Tasks will be simplified. Your performance level will increase, paradoxically. See, it's not what we would expect. And the pressure to be better than others by using superior hardened strength will cease to be a factor, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. You'll naturally incorporate the wisdom and peaceful harmony that's found in the martial arts by letting the efforts of others become a source of your own power. Your softness will override the hardness of others. Powerful, ladies and gentlemen, but that's not it. That would have been a good stopping place, but we're about halfway there. So if you're getting value, leave me a comment and let me know what you think about this. And be sure to subscribe. The principle is clearly seen when you look at great champions as they perform their chosen activities. The greatest golfers are effortless in their swing. The most successful ball players run, jump, throw, catch, and shoot with a softness that seems to stupefy most observers. They don't use force, nor can they find words to describe how it is what they do, which is the most interesting factor, I think, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is when you ask what he's talking about there, like great athletes or great performers, whether it be artists or musicians or, any of these kind of great individuals, maybe even entrepreneurs and businessmen and leaders and teachers and everything you could think of, people that achieve greatness in life. And you ask them in these moments of, greatness, how did you do it? A large majority of them will say, well, I don't know, it just in the moment, it just kind of came naturally. There is this thing called flow state or getting into the zone. And it seems that there is this weird ability that we have to get into this kind of oneness or connectedness state to our source, and it's just flowing through us. And we're able to do things that we, sure, we put in the practice and the training and the knowledge and the understanding, but then when it happens, it's just kind of like poof. And so I find that very fascinating because I'm somebody who loves to study lots of individuals who have achieved what we would call high levels of success or happiness or, whatever it be in life. Great people. Or maybe some of them aren't even great people. They were just able to achieve greatness, whether it be in a moment or for a long time. But there's always these interesting factors that allow for these kind of things. And so if we can discover these factors or these behaviors or these ways of thinking or, these ideas of how, and there is a way, if there's an example, ladies and gentlemen, out there in the world, then there is a way for you to learn from that example. And so that's what we're doing here in the moment right now. And so apply this way of seeing everything in your world. Tasks will be simplified. Performance level. Efforts. Yes, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The principle is clearly seen when you look at great champions as they perform. And so it's like they don't use force, nor can they find the words to describe how they do it. The most talented artists dance softly, without effort, or paint quietly, without force, and write easily, without struggle, by allowing the words to come to them. As Lao-tzu reminds you, these are the rare beings who live the master's way. These sages, which we are becoming, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you're here joining me listening to this video, then you're one of these people that will be and is currently discovering the master's way and becoming a sage in your own life. So give yourself a pat on the back, ladies and gentlemen, because we're doing a good job. Now, obtain the bounty of this world. These sages obtain the bounty of this world, which is available to us, ladies and gentlemen. As I contemplate, Wayne says, Lao-tzu's counsel, he urges me to offer you encouragement to apply the spirit in the watercourse way, the spirit of the watercourse way, that's found in this 43rd verse of the Tao Te Ching. And so here are his recommendations on how we can apply this wisdom of the 43rd verse of the Tao into our life practically. Number one, introduce a soft, non-action style to your life. And number two, encourage desires to freely flow in your imagination. Now, let's dive into what number one really means. He says, practice the way of non-action. And so this is introducing a soft, non-action style into our life. Practice the way of non-action or performing without effort by letting go of your inner drive to push ahead. And you'll see that you ironically do better than when you tried so hard. That's the truth. In your work, become more tolerant in your drive to achieve by softening your attitude and behavior. You'll see that customers and larger opportunities are attracted to you. Why is this true? Because you're allowing the perfect flow of the way of this force, whatever you want to call it. He calls it the Tao. Like the great gray heron lets the tide recede in order to reveal the nourishment he needs to live. Notice how your life changes as you change the way you look at it. And that's the most powerful lesson out of all of this, is just notice the way, as you practically change the way you observe your life, how it changes. And it does, ladies and gentlemen, for the better. And so practice performing without effort in other areas of our lives too. For example, some marathon runners say they've learned to relax and stop pushing, letting their legs, arms, and torsos simply be as their bodies begin experiencing extreme exhaustion with only a few miles to go. So it's kind of like you just let go and continue going. And so they report that when they shut down the mental interference and instructions, they magically cross the finish line. Soft always has its place, for it is the watercourse way, the way of the Tao. And so number 2 here was encourage desires to freely flow in our imagination. Consider what we've wanted to have in this life as if it's behind a locked door. Consider what you wanted to have in this life as if it's behind a locked door. Now, I had to read that twice. That's not what I expected him to say. It's kind of an odd, let's see what he means by that. Examine what you've been telling yourself about the prosperity, superb health, and good luck, and business success, and wonderful relationships you've created, that no matter how hard you've tried, it's all come to naught. Then imagine yourself flowing like water through the barrier of that locked room. Do it softly, gently, and silently in your mind. In other words, just spend some time getting used to practicing the watercourse way of the Tao. Fascinating. As you allow softness to be part of this picture of your life, Wayne continues, the hard way will soften. Begin to exercise this kind of effortlessness in all areas of your desires. According to Ralph Waldo Emerson, which should be a big name for all of us that are interested in this kind of stuff, quote, it is the condition of inspiration. Marry nature. What? Don't use her for pleasure. I urge you, Wayne says, to consider this kind of marriage. That is a fascinating statement. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, it is the condition of inspiration. Marry nature. Don't use her for pleasure. That's a deep one. And Emerson always makes me get, deep and ponderous on really, man. So what I'm thinking there is nature, your inspiration, which is what has been talked about this whole chapter and this whole video here today, is being able to allow and stop pushing and forcing and striving and trying to control and flowing and finding that there are greater levels of success when we begin to marry and harmonize with our nature, ladies and gentlemen, which comes very naturally to us, which is very fascinating because yesterday's video talked about finding, or, being able to feel how we can find and feel our own natural purpose here in life. Just being here naturally, giving us purpose. And so inspiration coming from that union of our nature and our natural purpose. Fascinating, very deep, ladies and gentlemen. And to finish every one of these chapters off, if you haven't got enough value already, he gives us a way that we can really simply put this into action in our lives, and it's called Do the Tao Now, ladies and gentlemen. So this was Thursday Tao for us here doing the Tao Now. And I just thought of A1, shout out to A1. You're my best follower and commenter so far, so I really appreciate the time that you spend here with me. So do the Tao now, ladies and gentlemen. How can we, all right, it's like, all right, Chase, you've told me all of these things about flowing and being softly and going with the way and whatever, but it's like, how do I actually do this? And so here is what Wayne Dyer has to say on how you can do this, ladies and gentlemen. Have a day of silence. That might be a challenge for many of us. Wayne continues, don't speak aloud to anyone. Instead, just observe and see if you can be in a state of softness without telling yourself or anyone else what to do. So if you can't stay silent for the whole day, ladies and gentlemen, refrain from telling yourself, or more importantly, anyone else, what they should do. And just go with whatever comes naturally, especially because then you're going to be saying, okay, what do I do then? Then I just sit there and never do it? No, you're like, no. I'm like, no, there will be a naturalness of action that comes to you without any force. But it will have great power, ladies and gentlemen. Power versus force. That's another book we'll have to reference and look at some great references from because it's life-changing. Anyway, how are we doing this practically? So practice being in this state of observing and see if you can be in a state of softness without telling yourself or anyone else what to do. Gently consider the powerful words of Herman Melville, who once said that God's one and only voice is silence. Boom to knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. Boom to wisdom. Boom to the wisdom of the Tao and Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And wow. You know, that's one of the great quotes that he always references in his lectures and speeches, Wayne does, is God's one and only voice is silence. So while we all sit around in a ring and suppose, the secret sits in the center and knows. So stop supposing, ladies and gentlemen, and start getting to the secret that sits in the center. Because that's one of the great secrets of all of this that we're practicing is once we can change our views on a lot of these different ideas that we've gone through, such as this idea of softness and the watercourse way, it's us being able to now go into life from a internal strength, from a, from a knowing, from the secret that sits in the center, the silence that is our connection, our union to force, to source, to God, grand organized design, or universal intelligence, great spirit, whatever it is you want to call it, ladies and gentlemen. It's like what the tea said today. And I love these yogi teas because they always have these little messages on the, the little thing that holds their tea bag. But it says, it is in the light. This is a powerful one. I said it wrong there. It is the light in the lantern which shows you the path, not the lantern, ladies and gentlemen. So remember that, because it's what we're creating in here. Like we are the lantern, but what is going to increase our ability and our quality, our quality of life and our ability to go through life, which with a much higher quality, is the light inside the lantern. And so, all of this work is going towards becoming an inwardly directed person rather than an outwardly directed person. Because when we can begin to get our contentment, our peace, and our happiness, and our joy, and our purpose, and our drive, and our passions, and our, all of these, our inspiration, when we can get these things, maybe inspiration's a good one to leave outside, but when we can get all of these things from ourselves, because we create it from within here, then whenever it's gone outside here, we'll be just fine. But if we're always dependent on the world or other people or other things to give us happiness, to give us comfort and contentment and joy and whatever it be, a sense of security, when we're dependent on the external world for any of those things, when the external world doesn't give it to us, we don't have it. And we feel lost, and we feel, less, unvalued, or not, without purpose, and all of the things that we don't want to feel, ladies and gentlemen. So remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness. Seek to achieve it and then maintain it through enlightenment, through changing the way we look at our lives, through a greater awareness, a greater understanding of all the aspects of our reality and how we can begin to create what it is that we want for ourselves in our lives through our own efforts and through our own actions, through our own study, ladies and gentlemen, becoming the mystic and the sage and the master, as the Tao references. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, to continue to seek to discover the wisdom of the ages, not just the book itself, but the wisdom that spans throughout the ages that comes to us from great authors and poets and mystics and teachers and whoever it be. And finally, remember to make happiness the way. Because if happiness is the process, the activity that we bring to life, remember, happiness, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. And when we can bring it to our life through practice, then the goal that we've been striving for, that we always told ourselves, I'll be happy when I get there, never being happy, but always wanting to get happy. It's like that will become irrelevant, ladies and gentlemen, because we'll already be where we wanted to get. And then the entire journey will be wonderful. And so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Please subscribe, and if you have already, smash the like and leave me a comment and just say yes or a thumbs up or whatever. It's very simple. And if you'd like to get this book for yourself, to put it on your shelf, to have the Do the Tao Now references from every one of these chapters and every one of these verses of the Tao Te Ching, you can expand the description below the video here. I should have a link to the book on Amazon, and I believe it should be a very easy process. What I was going to say is I've been trying to do affiliate links like this through Amazon for a very long time, and I get a few clicks here and there, but I've never gotten, like the 10 cents off of a purchase that you would expect. And so it's fascinating to try to do, but that's not a big worry for me because 10 cents is 10 cents. I can go find that outside real fast. Probably manifest it on my porch if I wanted to. How many of you can manifest 10 cents? Because that's one of the things we've been studying, ladies and gentlemen. But more importantly, get this book to change your life. And then we won't be worried about 10 cents like I'm not worried about 10 cents like I used to be. It's fascinating, too, because it was before. This has been part of the process of me changing that part of my life. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I love and appreciate everybody who spends time with me. Oh yeah, I have my landscape paintings linked there in the description below as well. I'd love to sell some of those. I actually need to update the Etsy shop because I only have 2 that are still listed at the moment because all the listings expired. But I do have about 43 on there that I need to renew, ladies and gentlemen. So I need to get to work on that. Leave me a comment and tell me to get to work on that. And A1, if you're still listening, I'd love to send you a painting for free just to show you how much I appreciate your support. And so, all right, ladies and gentlemen, be the change in the world that you want to see and continue to practice this watercourse way and allowing and flowing that we talked about today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll do some short videos for the rest of the week in between here and next week's Tuesday Tao. So continue, ladies and gentlemen, to change your thoughts and change your life by living the wisdom of the Tao and the wonderful authors and poets in the wisdom of the ages, as well as Wayne Dyer, and maybe even myself, just a little bit. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Stay happy and stay in the process. I know I'm just rambling now, but I love to do this. It's like continue to think about how you can change the thoughts that are popping into your head that you don't want, and you can catch them and stop them and change them to thoughts that you do want. All right, we'll leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Love you so much, and thank you. No, no, no.